The neon sign flickered erratically, casting a sickly green glow over the cracked asphalt. The words, "Last stop gas and groceries," buzzed like a dying insect, barely illuminating the desolate stretch of Route 47. My car had been running on fumes for miles, and when I saw the station, I nearly cried with relief. Big mistake. The place was ancient. Peeling paint, boarded up windows, and a smell like old meat left in the sun. A rusted bell jingled as I pushed open the door, the sound too loud in the heavy silence. Behind the counter sat an old man with yellowed eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. "Evening," he croaked. "You here for gas?" "Yeah," I said, trying to ignore the way his fingers tapped the counter like he was counting down to something. "Just fill it up." He slid a key across the counter, a real old-fashioned metal key. "Pumps out back. Rules are on the wall. Read 'em." I frowned but took the key. That's when I noticed the handwritten sign nailed to the wall behind him, the paper browned with age. Rules of the last stop gas station. 1. Do not use pump. 3. It is not for you. 2. If the attendant asks if you want a special blend, say no. 3. Do not look at the figure by the dumpster. If you see it, walk backward to the door and knock 3 times before re-entering. 4. The restroom is out of order. If the door is open, close it. If it won't stay closed, leave immediately. 5. Do not answer the payphone, ever. 6. If you hear whispering from the coolers, buy a soda and pour it on the ground outside. Do not drink it. 7. The radio will sometimes play a song you don't recognize. Change the station. If you can't, cover your ears until it stops. 8. After sunset, do not look at your reflection in the windows for more than 3 seconds. 9. If the lights go out, hold your breath until they come back on. 10. When leaving, check your back seat, even if you were alone when you arrived. My stomach twisted. What the hell is this? The old man's grin widened. Just rules. Follow 'em and you'll be fine. I scoffed but pocketed the key. The moment I stepped outside, the air felt thicker, like walking through syrup. The pumps were old, the kind with rolling numbers and a squealing handle. Pump 3 was roped off with caution tape, its nozzle dark with something that wasn't gasoline. I hurried to fill up, my skin prickling. That's when I heard it, a wet, clicking sound from behind the dumpster. Against my better judgment, I looked. There was a figure there. Tall, too tall, its limbs bent wrong, its face a smooth, featureless stretch of skin. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It just watched. My blood turned to ice. Rule 3. I forced myself to walk backward, my legs shaking. When my back hit the door, I knocked 3 times. The moment I stepped inside, the old man sighed. "Told you to read the rules." I shoved the key at him. "I just want to pay and leave." He chuckled, ringing me up. The radio behind him crackled to life, playing a slow, mournful tune, one I'd never heard before. The melody was wrong, the notes too long, the singer's voice guttural, like something trying to mimic human speech. Rule 7. I slapped my hands over my ears. The old man watched, amused, as the song droned on, the sound slithering into my skull. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. "Lucky," the old man muttered. I threw cash on the counter and bolted for the door. That's when the lights went out. Roll to 9. I held my breath. In the dark, something moved, a shuffling, a wet, dragging sound. Then a whisper so close I felt it on my neck. "You forgot to check the back seat." The lights flickered on. I gasped, whirling around. Nothing there. I ran to my car, fumbling with the keys. Before I got in, I checked the back seat. Empty. Thank God. I peeled out of there, the gas station shrinking in my rearview mirror. I didn't relax until I was miles away. Then my phone rang. Unknown caller. I shouldn't have answered. The voice on the other end was the same guttural whisper from the station. "You didn't pour the soda." I looked down. The passenger seat was wet. The can of Coke I'd never bought rolled onto the floor. And in the back seat, something stirred. Epilogue. The last stop gas station is still there, waiting for the next traveler. Maybe you'll see it when your tank is near empty, when the night is too dark, when the rules don't seem that strange. But remember, they're there for a reason. And the attendant always lies. The desert stretched endlessly under a bruised twilight sky, the kind of vast emptiness that made you feel like the world had forgotten you. My old pickup truck coughed and sputtered, the gas gauge's needle kissing the red E for the past 20 miles. I'd been driving through this nowhere stretch of Nevada, chasing a job that probably didn't exist, when I spotted it. A flickering neon sign in the distance, buzzing like a dying insect. Marty's Last Chance Gas. The station was a relic, a squat cinder block building with peeling paint and two ancient pumps that looked like they hadn't been serviced since the Nixon era. A single grimy window glowed faintly, casting a sickly yellow light onto the cracked pavement. The air smelled of dust and something acrid like burnt oil. My truck rolled to a stop, and I sat there for a moment, engine ticking, debating whether to keep going. But the next town was 60 miles away, and I wasn't making it on fumes. I stepped out, boots crunching on gravel, and approached the station. A faded sign hung above the door, handwritten in shaky black marker. Follow the rules or stay empty. Below it, a laminated sheet was nailed to the wall, listing rules in the same unsteady scrawl. I squinted, unease prickling my neck, and read, Marty's Last Chance, gas rules pay before you pump. Exact change only. No coins, no cards. Do not look at the man in the back booth. If the pump hums, stop pumping immediately. Do not open the restroom door if you hear scratching. Leave before the clock strikes midnight. No exceptions. If you see a dog, it's not a dog. Run. I blinked, rereading the list. The rules were bizarre, like something a paranoid old man would dream up after too many nights alone. But I needed gas, and the place looked deserted. I pushed open the door, a bell jingling above me, and stepped inside. The interior was worse than the outside. The air was thick with the stench of stale coffee and something metallic. Shelves lined with dusty cans of motor oil and off-brand snacks leaned precariously against the walls. A counter sat at the far end, manned by a gaunt figure in a faded flannel shirt. His name tag read Marty, though it was half torn, dangling by a thread. His eyes were sunken, his skin waxy, and he didn't look up from the crossword puzzle he was scribbling on. Evening, I said, voice echoing in the empty store. Need to fill up. $20 worth. Marty didn't move. Exact change, he rasped, his voice like sandpaper. Rule 1. I fumbled in my wallet, pulling out a crumpled 20. No coins, just as the sign demanded. I slid it across the counter, and Marty's bony hand snatched it without looking up. Pump 2, he muttered. Read the rules? Yeah, I said, glancing toward the window. The pumps stood like silent sentinels under the flickering neon. What's with the weird list? Marty's pencil stopped mid-scratch. For the first time he looked at me, his eyes glinting like oil slicks. They ain't weird. They're necessary. Follow 'em, or you don't leave. He pointed a trembling finger toward a booth in the corner, shrouded in shadow. And don't look at him. I followed his gesture, my curiosity tugging. The booth was empty, or so I thought. The shadows seemed to shift, like something was sitting there, just out of sight. My stomach twisted, but I forced my eyes away. Rule 2. Don't look. Outside, the air felt heavier, the desert's silence oppressive. I approached pump 2, the hose dangling like a limp snake. I inserted the nozzle into my truck's tank and started pumping. The numbers on the ancient display ticked up slowly, the machine groaning with effort. Then, a low hum vibrated through the hose, faint at first, like a distant swarm of bees. I froze, remembering Rule 3. If the pump hums, stop pumping immediately. I yanked the nozzle out, the hum fading instantly. Gas dripped onto the pavement, pooling in a way that looked almost deliberate, like it was forming a shape. I shook my head, chalking it up to exhaustion, and capped the tank. The neon sign flickered, casting long shadows that danced across the lot. I glanced at my watch. 11:15 p.m. Plenty of time before midnight, but the rule about the clock gnawed at me. Back inside, I grabbed a bottle of water from a dusty cooler, figuring I'd pay and get out. Marty was still at his crossword, muttering to himself. You didn't look, did you? He asked without raising his head. No, I lied, my voice catching. The booth in the corner seemed darker now, the shadows thicker. I swore Cheesy moved, a faint outline, like a man leaning forward, watching. My skin crawled, but I kept my eyes on Marty. Good, he said, scribbling again. He don't like being seen. I swallowed, setting the water on the counter. Who's he? Marty's pencil snapped. He looked up, his face pale, lips trembling. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to, boy. Pay for the water and go." I handed him another $1, my hands shaking. As I turned to leave, a faint scratching sound came from the back of the store, near a door marked restroom. I froze, Rule 4 flashing in my mind. Do not open the restroom door if you hear scratching. The sound grew louder, like nails dragging across wood, deliberate and slow. My heart pounded, urging me to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. "Marty," I whispered, "what's in there?" He didn't answer, just pointed to the door. "Get out, now!" I stumbled outside, the bell jingling behind me. The desert air was cold now, the neon sign flickering faster, like it was struggling to stay alive. My truck was right where I left it, but something felt wrong. The shadows around the pump seemed to writhe, and the gas puddle I'd spilled earlier looked different. It wasn't random anymore. It formed a shape, a crude, lopsided face, grinning up at me from the pavement. I blinked, and it was gone, just a puddle again. My breath hitched, and I fumbled for my keys. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural growl from the darkness beyond the station. My blood ran cold. Rule 6. If you see a dog, it's not a dog. Run. I turned slowly, praying it was just my imagination. But there it was, at the edge of the lot, where the neon's glow faded into the desert's black void. A shape low to the ground, with glinting eyes that weren't quite right. Too large, too bright, like they were reflecting a light that wasn't there. It wasn't a dog. Its limbs were too long, its movements too jerky, like a puppet with half its strings cut. I bolted for my truck, heart hammering. The thing didn't chase me, not yet, but I could hear its claws scraping the gravel, slow and deliberate, like it was savoring the hunt. I yanked the door open, jumped inside, and slammed it shut, locking it. The growl grew louder, closer, and I risked a glance out the window. The creature was gone, but the air felt wrong, heavy with a presence I couldn't see. I turned the key, and the engine sputtered but didn't start. Come on, I muttered, pumping the gas pedal. The dashboard clock blinked. 11:50 p.m. 10 minutes until midnight. Rule 5. Leave before the clock strikes midnight. No exceptions. The engine finally roared to life, and I peeled out of the lot, tires screeching. The neon sign flickered one last time before plunging the station into darkness. In my rearview mirror, I saw the silhouette of the station, and something else. A figure stood by the pumps, tall and thin, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It wasn't Marty. I drove, eyes glued to the road, refusing to look back. The desert stretched on, endless and uncaring, but the weight of the station lingered, like it was still watching me. My gas gauge read half full, enough to get me to the next town, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me. The air in the truck felt heavy, and every so often I'd catch a whiff of that burnt oil smell from the station. When I finally reached a diner in the next town, I pulled over, hands still shaking. The waitress, a kind-eyed woman named Dot, poured me coffee and asked why I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I told her about Marty's last chance gas, the rules, the thing in the lot. Her face paled, and she leaned in close. "You're lucky you left before midnight," she whispered. "Folks who they don't come back. That place ain't just a gas station. It's a trap. Been there since before I was born, and it don't let go easy." "What's in the restroom?" I asked, dreading the answer. She shook her head. "You don't want to know. Just be glad you didn't open the door." I didn't sleep that night. I kept seeing that grinning puddle, those glinting eyes, the figure by the pumps. When I checked my truck the next morning, I found something that made my blood run cold. A single crumpled dollar bill on the passenger seat, the exact change I'd given Marty for the water. Scratched into the leather beside it, in shaky, uneven letters, was a new rule. Don't come back. I never drove that stretch of desert again. But sometimes, late at night, I hear a faint hum, like a gas pump coming to life, and I smell burnt oil. I check my locks, keep the lights on, and pray I never see that neon sign again. Because deep down, I know. Marty's last chance gas is still out there, waiting for the next empty tank to roll in. You don't find gas station 46. It finds you. I was driving west on Highway 83, trying to outrun the storm and maybe a few other things, when my tank hit empty. No warning light. No sputter. Just dead silence, like the car itself had given up. That's when I saw the sign. Gas station 46, last fuel for 66 miles. There was no structure visible yet, just the sign, glowing faint green in the moonlight, swaying though there was no wind. I coasted another quarter-mile, then saw it. A crumbling, one-pump shack leaning against the night like a dying man. One yellow bulb buzzed over the rusted door, and beside it, tacked to the wood, was a sheet of paper. Rules for service at gas station 46. 1. Do not turn off your vehicle. 2. Do not leave the pump area unless invited. 3. If the attendant is missing an eye, leave immediately and don't look back. 4. Only pay in cash. Never coins, never cards. 5. Do not acknowledge the woman in the red dress if she approaches. 6. If the pump speaks to you, lie. 7. Stay exactly 9 feet away from the restroom between 1:13 and 1:29 a.m. 8. If the attendant asks, "Do you remember me?" say no. 9. Never under any circumstance go behind the station. I read the list 3 times, unsure if it was a joke or a bad prank. Then I noticed the last line, handwritten in shaky ink. You've already broken one. I looked down. My car was off. I started to turn the key again. It didn't respond. The dashboard stayed dead. The lights wouldn't flicker. I tried again, pressing the gas, clutch, everything. Still nothing. Then the gas station door creaked open. The man who emerged wore a gray uniform with no name tag. His face was long, sallow, and emotionless. But what stood out most was his eyes, both intact, both black as oil. "You need a fill?" he asked flatly. I nodded. "Yeah, sorry, the car just died." He walked to the pump, picked it up, and paused. "You turned it off." I didn't mean to. It just stopped. He looked at me for a long moment. "You're lucky it wasn't 1:13 yet." He shoved the nozzle into my car's tank with a metallic groan. "You got cash?" I pulled out a wad of bills, nothing large, maybe 60, and held them out. "Good," he muttered. "Better than most." A faint sound came from behind the station. A slow dragging. Like someone pulling a sack of wet clothes across concrete. "Don't look," the attendant said. I stared at him. I wasn't going to. "Doesn't matter, it wants you to." The pump clicked, signaling it was done. But neither of us moved. We just listened to that dragging sound fade. "That rule about going behind the station, what's back there?" I asked. He didn't answer, just yanked the nozzle out and shoved it back into the cradle. The gas meter read 32.46. "That'll do," he said, taking the money. He didn't count it, didn't even look. I turned to get in the car. Then I saw her, the woman in the red dress, standing on the edge of the lot, staring at me with eyes like shattered glass, her smile too wide, her hair too long. "Ignore her!" the attendant snapped. "I am? No, don't think about her either." I blinked and looked at the ground. The buzzing overhead got louder. The lights dimmed. The woman in red took a step forward. "Ignore her!" the man hissed again, stepping between us. "Can I leave now?" I asked. He didn't answer, just looked up at the buzzing light and said, "Not yet." "What do you mean, not yet?" I asked. A wet gurgling came from the pump. It hadn't clicked back on, but the hose trembled. The meter blinked red. "Where are you going?" It came from the pump. I looked at the attendant. "Did you—" "Lie," he whispered, not looking at me. "I'm heading home," I said. The pump gurgled louder. "That's a lie," I swallowed. "No, it's not. You're running, just like last time." I stepped away. "I want to go now." The pump hissed and spat a glob of black sludge onto the ground. It steamed and sizzled. The woman in the red dress laughed softly, her mouth never moving. "You need to go inside," the attendant said. "No way. You broke a rule. Now you're on a timer. You need to go inside until it's safe." "What happens if I don't?" He didn't answer, just pointed to the door. I walked slowly across the lot, remembering Rule 2, don't leave the pump area unless invited. I hadn't been invited, but maybe this counted. Inside was worse. The air was too dry, too still. The shelves were stocked with items that hadn't existed in decades. Crystal Pepsi, Hostess Chocodiles, old cans of Tab, dusty boxes of Lucky Lights candy cigarettes. A radio in the corner played static laced with whispering voices. The door shut behind me on its own. I stood there, unsure of what to do. The clock behind the counter ticked to 1:13 a.m. Suddenly, the restroom door across the store rattled violently. Something slammed against it from the inside. The clock ticked louder. My feet refused to move. A voice from the restroom whispered, 9 feet, you're not 9 feet away." I looked down. I was maybe 6. The door creaked open an inch. A long, black fingernail slid through the gap, clicking on the tile like a metronome. I stumbled backward, counting each step. 7, 8, 9. The door stopped moving. The voice stopped. The clock ticked to 1:29, and the air shifted. The dryness turned humid and sour, like rotting teeth. A bell rang, not the doorbell. Something older, deeper. The attendant appeared behind the counter. Safe now. I didn't ask questions. I bolted for the door, but before I reached it, he said, "You forgot the last rule." I froze. "What?" He smiled. "If I ask if you remember me," I stared at him. He hadn't asked. Then he did. "Do you remember me?" His face shifted. The same, but younger. The same, but bloodied. The same, but on a highway shoulder next to a crushed motorcycle and a twisted body I had tried to forget for 10 years. "Say no," he whispered. "No." He blinked, and it was gone. The station, the pump, the man. I stood alone in the desert, stars wheeling silently overhead. My car sat on the roadside, engine idling, tank full. A printed receipt lay on the dashboard. Gas station 46, 32146, cash. You followed most of the rules. That's better than most. Next time, don't turn off the car. See you again soon. I've driven that highway 5 times since. It's never been there again. But every time I pass mile marker 132, my engine stutters just a little. And I never let the tank drop below half. You'll only find the gas station if you're supposed to. That's what the man on the radio said just before the static swallowed his voice. I was somewhere deep in rural West Virginia. No signal, no map, just a decaying stretch of road twisting between thick, unblinking trees. My gas light had been on for 20 miles, and I'd already whispered prayers to gods I didn't believe in when I saw the flickering neon. Fuel, food, open, buzzing like a dying insect. It looked like it had been abandoned decades ago. A peeling sign read, Station 13, the one crooked and almost falling. The building leaned like it had arthritis, and the single pump was older than sin, standing alone like a gravestone. Still, I pulled in. My car coughed, hiccuped, and died. I didn't even curse, just exhaled. This wasn't just bad luck, it felt inevitable. As I stepped out, I noticed a sign nailed to the front of the station. Yellowed, cracked, but legible in smeared black ink. Rules of Station 13. Obey or be claimed. 1. Do not use pump 13. It is not for you. 2. Do not look into the windows after 12:01 a.m. You won't like what looks back. 3. If you see your reflection move differently, apologize. Immediately. 4. The gas is free. Payment comes later. 5. If a man with no lips offers you a cigarette, decline. Firmly. 6. Do not ask the attendant for directions. He hasn't left since 1974. 7. Should you hear knocking from the restroom, knock back exactly twice. No more, no less. 8. If you start to forget your name, leave. You're being rewritten. 9. Do not, under any circumstance, accept help from the children. 10. If the pump whispers your darkest secret, pretend you don't hear it. Deny everything. There was a final line scratched in red. You get one warning. Only one. Something inside me screamed to leave, but my legs moved on their own. I needed fuel, or maybe that was just the excuse. The air stank of copper and rot. Still, I picked up the nozzle at pump 12, praying it worked. As soon as I gripped it, I felt something warm pulse under my skin, like the pump was breathing. I filled the tank, though the meter never moved, just flickered between 1313 and 000. When I finished, I turned around, and the front door to the station was wide open. I hadn't seen anyone come out. No footsteps, no sound, yet there it was, gaping like a mouth. I stepped inside. The walls were stained, the tiles blackened. Rows of snacks lined the shelves, but all the labels were wrong, brands that never existed, in colors that hurt to look at. A humming filled the space like power lines underwater, and behind the counter stood the attendant. His skin was thin as wax, his eyes milky, unfocused. His lips had long since rotted away. He smiled. Need a cigarette? I froze. Rule 5, decline, firmly. No thanks. His eyes twitched. Smart. The humming grew louder. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the back, something thudded hard against a wall. I backed toward the door, but the attendant held up one bony hand. You fueled at 12, not 13. Good. Most don't listen. I saw the rules, I said. His head jerked. You read them? His voice cracked like a splintering tree. Then you're marked. Once read, they know you know. You can't unknow. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "Who are they?" He didn't answer, just pointed to a door behind the counter labeled restroom. Knocking's begun. There it was, soft, rhythmic. Knock, 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 knock. More than two. I ran. Outside, the night had changed. Thicker, blacker. The trees had moved closer. My breath steamed even though it was July. As I reached for my car door, I caught a glimpse of myself in the side mirror. I was smiling, but I wasn't. My reflection lifted its hand and waved. I dropped the keys. Rule 3. If the reflection moves differently, I turned to the mirror. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't mean to disrespect you." The smile on my reflection dropped. Its eyes widened. Then it nodded, and my face was mine again. I stumbled into the car, heart battering my ribs. The tank now read full. The dashboard clock blinked 12:66. A glitch, I thought, until it blinked again and read 13:13. And then the whispers began. From the vent, from the radio, from the tires. "You left him there. You lied about the accident. You liked how warm the blood felt." I cranked the engine. It didn't start. I hit the wheel, eyes watering. Then came the knock. On the passenger window, I looked. A little girl. No eyes. Just smooth skin where they should have been. Her mouth sewn shut with fishing wire. She held out a toy, a small red car identical to mine. "Need help?" a voice asked beside me. A boy now. Face melting. Worms in his ears. Both hands gripped the edge of the door. Rule 9. Don't accept help from the children. I shut my eyes. No, I'm fine. When I opened them again, they were gone. The air smelled like sulfur and dirt. The radio flared to life, distorted but clear. "You touched the pump. You took the gas. Payment is due." The gas gauge plummeted from full to empty in one blink. The engine started on its own. The station lights flared behind me. And the 13th pump, the one I had obeyed and avoided, was now right in front of me. It had moved. No, I had moved. I was at pump 13. The nozzle snaked out on its own and tapped against my window. A second later, it plunged through the glass like it wasn't even there, wrapping around my wrist. Burning cold. I screamed as it pulled tight. Then, darkness. I woke up in a hospital a week later, found by hikers in a field, 30 miles from the nearest road. My car was never found. No sign of fuel, no station. Just me, curled in the dirt, clutching an old rusted pump handle marked 13. The doctor said I was hallucinating. Trauma, dehydration, stress. But I remember. I remember the rules. I remember the whispers. And I remember the last thing the attendant said, right before I blacked out. His mouth inches from my ear. "You fueled for free. That means they own a piece of you now. They'll come collect when the time's right." I've never filled my tank again. I walk everywhere. And sometimes, when I pass a storefront or a puddle, I catch a glimpse of myself smiling when I'm not. Epilogue found scrawled on the wall of an abandoned gas station, dated 1966. The rules are not suggestions. They are the only thing keeping you you. Break them, and you start becoming something else. You won't notice at first. A reflection, a whisper, a missing memory. Then it's too late. You'll be stuck behind the glass, watching, forever, just like me. Thank you for listening. Hope I didn't scare you too much. If you like my stories, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. See you next time.